Hello everyone, my name is Kitetsu and welcome back to my channel. So we have the next article here, which is all about the preview of the Legions of Nagash Battletome, and I know there's been another 2 articles about this already, but basically there's just been too much news for me to keep up with all of it. Nevertheless, today I want to talk you through the Legion of Sacrament, which is all about Archon the Black. One of the reasons I always love elves is because I just love magic. I mean, the whole point is we all like fantasy, right? That's why we're kind of into this Age of Sigmar thing. And magic and fantasy kind of go hand in hand. So this was one that I was really keen to find out more about. Fortunately, it seems like they're doing a very good job of making the magic in Legions of Nagash sound really exciting. For one thing, we're going to have 2 new laws. The first one is going to be the Law of the Death Mages, and the second one is going to be the Law of the Vampires. One thing that's really cool is obviously if you have a favourite spell from any of the characters as they are at the moment, it says here that those are all still going to be there. So it says Archon can still unleash the horrifying curse of years. So if you really are attached to some of these spells, they're not getting rid of them, you've still got the classics there, and then they're just adding a whole load of new stuff on top of that, which is always a good thing. Like, variety is always good. What I find really exciting is they're really kind of mixing things up in the rules in a way that we haven't really seen them done before. So for example, whatever Law of the Dead that you're using, you get this thing called Locus of Shaiish. What that means is whenever you are trying to cast a spell, if you get an unmodified casting roll of a 9+, you get to resolve the effect twice. So a 9+ is like, what, a 5 and a 4. That's not that difficult to roll. I mean, the odds are against you, and it is obviously a slightly lucky roll to get, but it's not exactly like impossible to do. It's far more doable than saying you need double 6s or something like that. But that's really cool. They give an example of a spell here, Soul Harvest, where basically you have a casting value of 7, so already you only need 2 more than that to be able to resolve this twice. And if you are successful, an enemy unit suffers D3 mortal wounds, and then say you did 2 mortal wounds to them, you would roll 2 dice, 1 for each wound, and for each 5+, the caster heals a wound. So it's really cool. You can send your death mages in, and it's kind of like a arcane bolt on steroids, because you're kind of killing them and at the same time siphoning their soul away and healing yourself. So I love the idea of it, and on a 5+ you heal a wound, so you're looking at a 1 in 3 chance of that being successful, which is not too bad. The cool thing is though, is if you get your 9 for the casting value, you resolve that twice, so you're doing 2 D3 mortal wounds, and then you've got double the chances of healing those wounds back. Next, they give us a really cool example of a spell from the Law of Vampires, and this one is called the Amaranthine Orb. This one also has a casting value of 7, and it says, if successfully cast, pick a point on the battlefield within 12 inches, draw an imaginary straight line 1mm wide. I haven't seen them specify a width before for these lines, so that's interesting. I'm wondering if that's just for rule clarity whilst you're playing, where people are going to argue, oh, it's not on the line or it's not under it, and someone's like, but it's so close, and yeah, it's probably just to avoid those messy kind of situations. But yeah, you draw the line between that point and the closest part of the caster, then you roll a dice for each unit, friend or foe, that has any models beneath the line, and on a 4+, they suffer D6 mortal wounds, so that's really powerful. I actually think this may be one of my favourite spells that I've read. Like, I was looking through the Lore of Nurgle, and they've got some really great stuff in there too, but for someone who particularly loves deadly magic, like just the ability to do D6 mortal wounds to any unit under a line that's 12 inches long, like that's potentially absolutely devastating. To think that you can actually resolve that twice as well, and do 2d6 mortal wounds to all of those units, that's just crazy. So last time we were looking at the Grand Host of Nagash, and this time we are looking at the Legion of Sacrament. So it gives you a few little tidbits of what we might expect to see from this Legion. And obviously, as I said at the beginning, this one is all about Archon the Black. As you'd expect from a character like Archon, The whole Legion is all about mastery of death magic, and I like the fact that here it says that many mages in the mortal realms actually make the long pilgrimage to Shyish to learn from Arkan himself. So already they're bringing that narrative lore aspect into the rules, and just, I think we're going to be in for a treat when it comes to the background of this particular book. Shyish has not been developed too well so far, so I'm just very keen to see more of it. Obviously there's been a couple of novels in the Realm Gate War series which I'm actually just starting to read at the moment, but it'd be nice to have kind of like a reference book like the Battletome will be, where you can just kind of dive straight in and at a glance have a better idea of the overview of what the lore of death is about, rather than like a really focused story in a novel. So what do the Legions of Sacrament get as a bonus? The first thing is they add 1 to casting rolls, which is already a brilliant ability to have for all of their wizards. The next thing is this bit here, the Master's Teachings, which I absolutely love this rule. Like, it's so cool. I think it's a shame because I'm not sure if I would focus my own personal army around Arkan just because I particularly love Neferata, but I love this ability. It would be so cool if it had this in Neferata's army as well, but hey ho, never mind. Basically, what you do is, when you've wiped out an enemy unit, you pick one of the grave sites within 6 inches of their last model that you killed, and on a 4+, so you've got like a 50% chance of it working. I guess that's kind of risky, but at the same time it's very cool. You can pick a friendly summonable unit that has been destroyed, and you can set it up again wholly within 9 inches of that gravesite. How cool is that? It's almost like you've lost a unit, they've died, and it's almost like where you've killed an enemy unit, they've literally just risen up out of the ground and come back to life. I think that would just work so well if you had tons of zombies in your armies. It would just be awesome. So they give you a recommended strategy of keeping all of your army in a castle, just hurling all these spells out. And they talk about this artifact, the Black Gem, which is a once per battle artifact, and it's basically a crystal. When you say you're going to break it, you pick a point on the battlefield within 8 inches of the bearer, roll a dice for each unit within 3 inches of this point, and on a 6+, 1 model from that unit is slain. And it kind of targets units that have lost wounds already, but I don't know, I'm not a massive fan of this. I guess it could be hilarious at times, but it's kind of too risky, in my opinion, to be worthwhile, because on one hand, you could literally pick Archaon, roll a dice, get a 6, and boom, he's dead, when he could be on full health. 20 wounds just straight down the drain. But on the other hand, you need a 6, and that's quite a small chance of working. And it's a once per battle ability, so it's kind of fun, but I probably wouldn't use it myself, unless there's something I'm not quite seeing about it, so let me know down in the comments if I'm missing something there. To me, this one is far more exciting. Roll a dice each time you allocate a wound or mortal wound to the bearer in the shooting phase, and on a 4+, the wound is negated. Those are the wristbands of black gold. The reason I find that so much more appealing is because A, it's going to work a lot of the time, like literally half the time that's going to benefit you. And also, if you think about the Legion of Sacrament just as a whole, your strategy is probably going to involve quite a lot of magic, and therefore you're going to want to keep them at range, peppering your enemy with all these spells, and that means those units are mostly going to be kept out of the combat phase with any luck. And therefore the main threat to them is going to be in the shooting phase, so having something that protects one of your characters is pretty cool. And it works for mortal wounds as well, so even better. And just like the last preview, we end things up looking at a War Scroll battalion, this one called the Lords of Sacrament, and this one is based around Arkan and Mortis Engine, which is one of these incredible looking things, if you weren't sure. Like, wow, just look at that thing. Apart from these spears, they're just begging to be snapped off. But, yep, so Arkan, a Mortis Engine, and a Coven of Necromancers. And what that does is every unit in the battalion is shielded from attacks by the Mortis Engine. The most important thing, which I assume is the bit written here, is all wizards in a Legion of Sacrament army know an additional spell from one of the Laws of the Dead. When you're going to have 2 spell laws to pick from, the ability for every wizard to know a second spell is particularly good. Like when I think about my Sylvaneth, for example, you can give them, I think it's called Regrowth for healing, but then at the same time you might think, well, it's a very situational spell, you might want one that lets you do some damage or healing depending on the scenario you're in. So the fact that you get all of this extra choice could make your army so much better. But anyway, that was the second preview. I think it sounds really cool, very exciting, and I'm very keen to talk about the Legion of Blood, which is obviously Neferata's group. And I also can't wait to talk about Manfred, because as a character, he's starring in the novel I'm reading at the moment, but I don't know too much about him. But all I know is his War Scroll at the moment is pretty nasty, so I'm hoping for good things from that character too. But anyway, don't forget to like the video, don't forget to subscribe if you're new, and if you want to support me on Patreon, head over there and do so. I've got the link down in the description. I can't believe I've already had 8 patrons already. Like, it's absolutely incredible, and just like $1 a month to you guys is not necessarily much. If it is, don't worry about it. I'm not pushing this on you at all. Completely optional, but for me, those dollars add up and it makes it really worthwhile, and hopefully I can just do more giveaways and cool stuff like that. But anyway, I don't want to keep going on about it. You guys are the best, and I will see you guys really soon.